Mhm. Guess who's back, 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 back again? Mhm. ठीक है, वॉइस तो बढ़िया है, मतलब क्लैरिटी है. Just allow me a few seconds and I'll start. From hunted to hunters. RCB won the second title yesterday, so it's a good morning. It's a very good morning today. And we are back again with this book, Men's Search for Meaning. And we are at the ninth video. We have covered almost 92 pages so far. So now we are going to start from 93rd page onwards. And we are at the, as I said, page number 93 out of 148. And the topic is new dynamics. Now we are covering the logotherapy part. So yeah, that's about it. Just allow me a few seconds. Let me place things. Okay, let's begin. न्यू डायनेमिक्स लोगोथेरेपी सेकंड जो मेन पार्ट है इस बुक का जिसके लिए मैंने ये बुक पढ़नी स्टार्ट करी थी वो थी लोगोथेरेपी के बारे में. क्या होती है लोगोथेरेपी, उससे कैसे सर्च फॉर लाइक मैन सर्च फॉर मीनिंग, कैसे आपको अपने वाई का आंसर मिलता है, कैसे ये हेल्प करती है, वो चीज़ हम अंडरस्टैंड करने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं. ठीक है, सो लेट्स बिगिन विदाउट एनी फर्दर अडू. टू बी श्योर, मैन सर्च फॉर मीनिंग में अरोज inner tension rather than inner equilibrium, and that's very true. However, precisely such tension is an indispensable prerequisite of mental health. There is nothing in the word, I venture to say, that words so effectively help one to survive even the worst condition as the knowledge that there is a meaning in one's life. ओके, सो बेसिकली अगर आपको आपकी लाइफ की मीनिंग पता होगी, लाइक क्यों आप जीना चाह रहे हो या क्या आपकी ज़िंदगी का वाई है, तो आप एडवर्स से एडवर्स वर्स्ट वर्स्ट कंडीशन सर्वाइव कर जाओगे इफ़ यू हैव दैट मच क्लैरिटी. देर इज मच विजडम इन द वर्ड्स ऑफ नीत्से. ही who has a why to live for can bear almost anyhow. Now let me highlight this. This is very important. He who has a why to live for can bear almost anyhow. I can see in these words a motto which holds true for any psychotherapy. In the Nazi concentration camps, one could have witnessed that those who knew that there was a task waiting for them to fulfill were most apt to survive. The same conclusion has since been reached by other authors of books on concentration camps and also by psychiatric investigations into Japanese, North Korean and North Vietnamese prisoners of war camps. तो यानी कि एडवर्स कंडीशन में भी वही लोग सरवाइव कर पाए जिनको जिनकी लाइफ में कोई एम था. ठीक है, जिनको अपना वाई क्लियर था. उनके लिए वो वाई ये भी हो सकता है कि उन्होंने अपने लव्ड वन से मिलना है. किसी के लिए वाई ये भी हो सकता है कि उसने अपना कुछ प्रोजेक्ट कंप्लीट करना है. बट जिनके पास वाई था कि वो क्यों जीना चाहते हैं लाइफ को आगे, वो उनके सर्वाइव करने के चांसेस बढ़ गए. सिर्फ इसी कंसंट्रेशन कैंप में नहीं, बट जापान में, नॉर्थ कोरिया में, नॉर्थ वियतनामीज में, जब प्रिजनर ऑफ वॉर कैंप्स की बात हो रही है. ठीक है. एज फॉर माई सेल्फ, वेन आई वॉज टेकन टू द कंसंट्रेशन कैंप ऑफ ऑस्विट्स, अ मैन्यूस्क्रिप्ट ऑफ mine ready for publication was confiscated. Certainly, my deep desire to write this manuscript anew helped me to survive the rigors of the camps I was in. So, author के लिए ये था जो वाई था जिसके लिए वो जीना चाहते थे. For instance, when in a camp in Bavaria, I fell ill with typhus fever. I jotted down on little scraps of paper many notes intended to enable me to rewrite the manuscript should I live to the day of liberation. I am sure that this reconstruction of my lost manuscript in the dark barracks of Bavarian concentration camp assisted me in overcoming the danger of cardiovascular collapse. ओके, तो उनके पास बेसिकली एक टास्क था जिसको वो पूरा करना चाहते थे, जिसके कारण उन्होंने सर्वाइव किया. इज व्हाट ऑथर इज ट्राइंग टू से. Thus, it can be seen that mental health is based on a certain degree of tension, the tension between what one has already achieved and what one will ought to accomplish. जो आपने अचीव कर लिया है और जो आप अचीव करना चाहते हो, or the gap between what one is and what one should become. Such a tension is inherent in the human being and therefore is indispensable to mental well-being. We should not then be hesitant about challenging man with a potential meaning for him to fulfill. It is only thus that we evoke his will to meaning from its state of latency. I consider it as a dangerous misconception of mental hygiene to assume that what man needs in the first place is equilibrium, or as it called in biology, homo homeostatis stat, status stasis homeostasis. Okay, a tensionless state. What man actually needs is not a tensionless state, but rather the striving and struggling for a worthwhile goal, a freely chosen task. What he needs is not discharge of tension at any cost, but the call of a potential meaning waiting to be fulfilled by him. What man is not what man needs is not homeostasis, but what I call new dynamics. अब ये सुनते ही मेरे दिमाग में एक चीज़ वो आ रही है. अब मैं दोबारा से कोट करूंगा इसको. डेड पोएट सोसाइटी एक मूवी है, बहुत ही ब्रिलियंट मूवी है, यू शुड वॉच इट, एंड इट इज़ वेरी ब्रिलियंट मूवी. सो उसमें जो प्रोटैगनिस्ट होता है, जो मेन लीड है, जो टीचर है बेसिकली, वो बोलता है, बट ओनली इन देयर ड्रीम्स कैन मैन बी ट्रूली फ्री. इट वॉज ऑलवेज दस एंड दस ऑलवेज विल बी. तो ये उनका आंसर होता है, क्योंकि एक सामने से जो दूसरा एक्टर होता है वो बोलता है, शो मी a heart unfettered by foolish dreams and I'll show you a happy man. तो उसके आंसर में ये बोलते हैं that but only in their dreams can men be truly free. It was always thus and thus always will be. यानी कि जिसके पास ड्रीम्स हैं, जिसके पास एम है, जीने के लिए लाइफ में कोई, आप बोल सकते हो कि गोल है, या जिसके सपने हैं, वही सही मायनों में जिंदा है. अदरवाइज हो सकता है कि फिजिकली आप सर्वाइव कर रहे हो, बट यू आर नॉट रियली like living your life to the full potential of yours. All right, what man needs is not homeostasis, but what I call new dynamics. Therefore, the existential dynamics in a polar field of tension where one pole is represented by a meaning that is to be fulfilled and the other pole by the man who has to fulfill it. And one should not think that this holds true only for normal conditions. In neurotic individuals, it is even more valid. It architects want to strengthen a decrepit arc. They increase the load which is laid upon it, for thereby the parts are joined more firmly together. So, if the therapists wish to foster their patient's mental health, they should not be afraid to create a sound amount of tension through a reorientation towards the meaning of one's life. Okay. Having shown the benefit impact of meaning orientation, I turn to the detrimental influence of that feeling of which so many patients complain today, namely the feeling of the total and ultimate meaninglessness of their lives. They lack the awareness of meaning worth living for. They are haunted by the experience of their inner emptiness, a void within themselves. They are caught in that situation which I have called the existential vacuum. तो जैसे मेरा भी ये, मतलब I used to think in this manner also. I'll not say if it is completely changed or not, but I used to think that peace is the ultimate aim for a human. But now, understanding this logic of author, now I'm reconsidering it, because peace is not the ultimate aim. Meaning of life is the ultimate aim. If you have a meaning of life, then you should strive for it. You should, go for it all in. No matter what the outcome is, you should go for it with all your, like with your heart, with all your potential. You should go all in, right? And इन दिस प्रोसेस अगर बीच में कहीं पे टेंशन वगैरह ये सारी चीज़ें भी है, तो वो भी पार्ट और पार्शल ही है गेम का. द रीसेंट एग्जांपल जो मेरे को याद आ रहा है, आरसीबी ने कल सेकंड टाइटल अपना जीता है. 19 ईयर्स में सेकंड टाइटल, और बैक टू बैक टाइटल जीते हैं. स्टार्टिंग के 17 ईयर्स में उन्होंने एक भी टाइटल नहीं जीता था, बट समथिंग वाज देयर हु केप्ट देम गोइंग, राइट? सो in 18th season they won the first title, and in 19th season they won the second title, which is again tremendous, right? सो उसके लिए उन्होंने हार्डवर्क बहुत सारा किया है, बहुत सारी चीज़ें करी हैं, एंड इट ऑल पेड ऑफ. सो या, अ मीनिंग ऑफ लाइफ इज अ मस्ट थिंग अ पर्सन शुड हैव. द एग्जिस्टेंशियल वैक्यूम. The existential vacuum is a widespread phenomenon of the 20th century. This is understandable. It may be due to a twofold loss which man has had to undergo since he became a truly human being. At the beginning of human history, man lost some of the basic animal instincts in which an animal's behavior is embedded and by which it is secured. Such security, like paradise, is closed to man forever. Man has to make choices. In addition to this, however, man has suffered another loss in his more recent development in as much as the traditions which buttressed, buttressed his behavior are now rapidly diminishing. No instinct tells him what he has to do, and no tradition tells him what he ought to do, which is very true. Sometimes he does not even know what he wishes to do. Instead, he either wishes to do what others people do, conformism, or he does what other people wish him to do, totalitarianism. Totalitarianism. ट्रू, बहुत बार हमें पता नहीं होता कि हम क्या करना चाहते हैं। हम या फिर वो करते हैं जो दूसरे लोग कर रहे हैं जिसको कन्फर्मिज्म बोला जाता है, या फिर हम वो करते हैं जो सोसाइटी हमसे एक्सपेक्ट करती है। दैट इज टोटैलिरियनिज्म। टोटैलिरियनिज्म। A, a statistical survey recently revealed that among my European students, 25% showed a more or less marked degree of existential vacuum. Among my American students, it was not 25 but 60%. The existential vacuum manifests itself mainly in a state of boredom. Now we can understand Schopenhauer. Okay, I think Schopenhauer. Okay, when he said that mankind was apparently doomed to vacillate, vacillate eternally between the two extremes of distress and boredom. In actual fact, boredom is now causing and certainly bringing to psychiatrists more problems to solve than distress. And these problems are growing increasingly crucial for progressive automation will probably lead to an enormous increase in the leisure hours available to the average worker. The pity of it is that many of these will not know what to do with all their newly acquired free time. Let us consider, for instance, Sunday neurosis. What kind of that kind of depression which afflicts people who become aware of the lack of content in their lives when the rush of the busy week in over and the void within themselves become manifest. Not a few cases of suicide can be traced back to this existential vacuum. Such widespread phenomena as depression, aggression, and addiction are not understandable unless we recognize the existential vacuum underlying them. This is also true of the crisis of pensioners and aging people. Moreover, there are various masks and guises under which the existential vacuum appears. Sometimes the frustrated will to meaning is vicariously vicariously compensated for by a will to power, including the most primitive form of the will to power, the will to money. In other cases, the place of frustrated will to meaning is taken by the will to pleasure. That is why existential frustration often eventuates in sexual compensation. We can observe in such cases that the sexual libido becomes rampant in the existential vacuum. Huh. An analogous event occurs in neurotic cases. There are certain types of feedback mechanism and vicious circle formations which I will touch upon later. One can observe again and again, however, that this symptomatology has invaded an existential vacuum wherein it then continues to flourish. In such patients, what we have to deal with is not a neurogenic neurosis. However, we will never succeed in having the patient overcome his condition if we have not supplemented the therapeutic treatment with logotherapy. For by filling the existential vacuum, the patients will be prevented from suffering further relapses. Therefore, logotherapy is indicated not only in neurogenic cases as pointed न्यू का मतलब माइंड से है यहाँ पे, ठीक है, ये ऑथर ने पहले ही क्लियर कर दिया था, as pointed out above, but also in psychogenic cases. and sometimes even the somatogenic pseudo neuroses. Viewed in this light, a statement once made by Magda B. Arnold is justified. Every therapy must, in some way, no matter how restricted, also be logotherapy. Okay, let us consider what we can do if a patient asks what the meaning of life is. Let's see. The meaning of life. I doubt whether doctor can answer this question in general terms, for the meaning of life differs from men to men, which is again very true, from day to day and from hour to hour. What matters, therefore, is not the meaning of life in general, but rather the specific meaning of a person's life at a given moment. To put the question in general terms, would be comparable to the question posed to a chess champion. Tell me, master, what is the best move in the world? There simply is no such thing in the thing as the best or even a good move apart from a particular situation in a game and the particular personality of one's opponent. The same holds for human existence. One should not search for an abstract meaning of life. Everyone has his own specific vocation or mission in life to carry out a concrete assignment which demands fulfillment. So जो रीज़न है वो हर किसी के लिए अलग अलग हो सकता है. मीनिंग ऑफ लाइफ हर किसी के लिए अलग अलग होता है यार, ऐसा बोलने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं. एक एब्स्ट्रैक्ट मीनिंग नहीं लेके चलना है कि सबके लिए वही ट्रू होगा. Therein, he cannot be replaced, nor can his life be repeated. Thus, everyone's task is as unique as is his specific opportunity to implement it. As each condition in life represents a challenge to man and presents a problem for him to solve, the question of the meaning of life may actually be reversed. Ultimately, man should not ask what the meaning of life is, but rather he must recognize that it is he who is asked. In a word, each man is questioned by life, and he can only answer to life by answering for his own life. To life, he can only respond by being responsible. Thus, logotherapy sees in responsibleness the very essence of human existence. The essence of existence. Okay, this emphasis on responsibleness is reflected in the categorical imperative of logotherapy, which is live as if you were living already for the second time and as if you had acted the first time as wrongly as you are about to act now. Live as if you are living already for the second time and as if you had acted the first time as wrongly as you are about to act now. Okay, it seems to me that there is nothing which would stimulate a man's sense of responsibleness more than this maxim, which invites him to imagine first that the present is past, and second that the past may yet be changed and amended. ओके, दिस इज वन वे टू लुक एट इट. तो जो प्रेजेंट है वो भी पास्ट है, और जो पास्ट है उसको चेंज किया जा सकता है क्योंकि प्रेजेंट पास्ट है, ऐसे सेंस में वो बोल रहे हैं. थिंक योर लाइफ लाइक यू आर लिविंग इट फॉर द सेकंड टाइम एंड यू हैव ऑलरेडी कमिटेड mistakes in the first time, now you are correcting it. Second, that the past may yet be changed and amended. Okay, such a precept confronts him with life's finiteness as well as the finality of what he makes out of both his life and himself. Logotherapy tries to make the patient fully aware of his own responsibleness. Therefore, it must leave to him the option for what to what or to whom he understands himself to be responsible. That is why a logotherapist is the least tempted of all psychotherapists to impose value judgments on his patients, for he will never permit the patient to pass the doctor the responsibility of judging. It is therefore up to the patient to decide whether he should interpret his life task as being responsible to society or to his own conscience. There are people, however, who do not interpret their own lives merely in terms of task assigned to them, but also in terms of the taskmaster who has assigned it to them. Logotherapy is neither teaching nor preaching. It is as far removed from logical reasoning as it is from moral exhortation. To put it figuratively, the role played by logotherapist is that of an eye specialist rather than that of a painter. A painter tries to convey us a picture of the words as he sees it. An ophthalmologist, basically the eye doctor, tries to enable us to see the word as it really is. The logotherapist's role consists of widening and broadening the visual field of the patient so that the whole spectrum of potential meaning becomes conscious and visible to him. Okay, ठीक है, तो लोगोथेरेपी ऐसे काम करती है कि वो आपको जैसी चीज़ें हैं वैसे ही दिखाने में मदद करती है। आपको कुछ पेंटिंग नहीं बना के देती है, जो चीज़ जैसी है वैसे आपको दिखाने की मदद करती है ताकि आप अपने आप से मीनिंग ऑफ लाइफ को फिगर आउट कर सको। By declaring that man is responsible and must actualize the potential meaning of his life, I wish to stress that the true meaning of life is to be discovered in the world rather than within man or his own psyche, as though it were a closed system. I have termed this constitutive characteristic the self transcendence of human existence. It denotes the fact that being human always points and is directed to something or someone other than oneself. Okay, be it is a be it a meaning to fulfill or another human being to encounter. The more one forgets himself by giving himself to a cause to serve or other person to love, the more human he is and the more he actualizes himself. What is called self actualization is not an attainable aim at all, for the simple reason that the more one should strive for it, the more he would miss it. In other words, self actualization is possible only as a side effect of self transcendence. Thus, far we have shown that the meaning of life always changes, but that it never ceases to be. According to logotherapy, we can discover this meaning in life in three different ways: by creating a work or doing a deed, by experiencing something or encountering someone, and by the attitude we take forward unavoidable suffering. Okay, let's go through it once again. Discover this meaning in life in three different ways. My mind is on, like, मेरा दिमाग किसी दूसरी चीज में गया हुआ है. Emotions, emotions, emotions. Okay, first, by creating a work of doing a deed. Okay, by experiencing something or encountering someone, they can find the meaning of life. Or by creating a work or doing a deed, they can find the meaning of life. Or by the attitude we take towards our unavoidable suffering. Okay, the first, the way of achievement or accomplishment, is quite obvious. The second and third need further elaboration. The second way of finding a meaning in life is by experiencing something such as goodness, truth, and beauty, by experiencing nature and culture, or last but not least, by experiencing another human being in his very uniqueness, by loving him. Alright. The meaning of love. Love is the only way to grasp another human being in the innermost core of his personality. No one can become fully aware of the very essence of another human being unless he loves him. By his love, he is enabled to see the essential traits and features in the beloved person. And even more, he sees that which is potential in him, which is not yet actualized by yet ought to be actualized. Furthermore, by his love, the loving person enables the beloved person to actualize these personalities, potentialities, by making him aware of what he can be and of what he should become. He makes these potentialities come true. Okay, all right. In logotherapy, so basically, if you have someone in your life, or basically love of your life, they can also help you to identify your potential to the fullest, or can help you to identify the meaning of your life. In logotherapy, love is not interpreted as a mere epiphenomenon of sexual desires and instincts in the sense of so-called sublimation. Okay, love is as primary as phenomenon as sex. Normally, sex is a mode of expression for love. Sex is justified, even sanctified, as soon as but long at as soon as but only as long as it is vehicle of love, not lust, which is current ongoing situation in the society, right? Thus, love is not understood as a mere side effect of sex. Rather, sex is a way of expressing the experience or that ultimate togetherness which is called love. The third way of finding meaning in life is by suffering. Okay, the meaning of suffering. We must never forget that we may also find meaning in life even when confronted with a hopeless situation, when facing a fate So we perform our best when we are under pressure, right? So similar kind of thing author is trying to convey here. When facing a fate that cannot be changed, for what then matters is to be a witness to the uniquely human potential at its best, which is to transform a personal tragedy into triumph, to turn one's predicament into a human achievement. When we are no longer able to change a situation, just think of an incurable disease such as inoperable cancer, we are challenged to change ourselves. Let me cite a clear cut example. Once an elderly journal practitioner consulted me because of his severe depression. He could not overcome the loss of his wife, who had died 2 years before and whom he had loved above all these. नेटफ्लिक्स में एक शो भी है उसका मैंने कुछ सीजन देखे हैं. आफ्टर लाइफ करके एक शो है, आई थिंक ब्रिटिश शो है टू बी वेरी प्रिसाइज. उसमें भी उसकी जो वाइफ होती है जैसे वो बहुत प्यार कर रहा होता है करता है, उसकी डेथ हो जाती है. नाउ ही डोंट हैव एनी एम एनी मीनिंग इन लाइफ एंड ही इज जस्ट लिविंग बाय इट. सो कैसे वो टैकल करता है चीज़ें, कैसे चीज़ें होती हैं वो इस शो में है. तो इफ़ यू वांट टू चेक इट आउट, जस्ट चेक इट आउट, आफ्टर लाइफ इन नेटफ्लिक्स. Now, could I help him? What should I tell him? Well, I refrained from telling him anything but instead confronted him with a question. What would have happened, doctor, if you had died first and your wife would have had to survive you? Oh, he said. For her, this would have been terrible. How she would have suffered. Whereupon I replied, you see, doctor, such a suffering has been spared her, and it was you who have spared her this suffering. To be sure, at the price that now you have to survive and mourn her. We, he said no word but shook my hand and calmly left my office. It's all about changing the perspective. So the person was in grief, in sorrow, in great sorrow because his wife died. Now the psychiatrist, the author, showed him another way to looking at the situation. He said, if you were died earlier, how would your wife have survived? So he think it in this manner. He said, okay, that would have been like disastrous for her. She has to go through a lot of suffering. So in that way, you held her because she died earlier than you. So you have to go through that suffering, and it changed the way he was, thinking the what I can say. He was perceiving the life, and now he's just shook the hand of the person, like the author and psychiatrist in this scenario, and he left the office calmly, as if he got the answer. In some way, suffering ceases to be suffering at the moment it finds a meaning, such as the meaning of a sacrifice. Of course, this was no therapy in the proper sense, since first his despair was no disease, and second, I could not change his fate. I could not revive his wife. But in that moment, I did succeed changing his attitude towards his unalterable fate, in as much as from that time, or he could at least see a meaning in his suffering. It is one of the basic tenets of logotherapy that man's main concern is not to gain pressure or to avoid pain, but rather to see a meaning in his life. That is why man is even ready to suffer, on the condition to be sure that his suffering has a meaning, which is very true. Till the age of 21, even now also, like not even 21, from my very young age, my aim of life was just to get into the armed force and just give the ultimate sacrifice so that I'll have a meaning of life, like I spared my life for the country, and at the same time my parents and my family will get all the, what I can say, money in return, or basic necessities and everything will be fulfilled because I sacrificed myself for the country. So that used to be my aim. मेरा aim यही था कि मैं आर्मी में जाना चाहता था ताकि मैं वहाँ कहीं मेरा वो हो जाए, शहीद हो जाऊँ मैं, और उससे मेरी मीनिंग ऑफ लाइफ भी फुलफिल हो जाएगा, और मेरी जो शहीद है उसके होने के कारण मेरे फैमिली को सारी चीज़ें मिल जाएंगी. सारी चीज़ें एज इन लाइक फाइनेंशियल जो नीड्स हैं उनकी वो फुलफिल हो जाएंगी. सो दैट इज़ अगेन विन विन सिचुएशन फॉर मी. सो यही यहाँ पे ऑथर भी बताना चाह रहे हैं कि सफरिंग भी एक पर्सन चूज कर सकता है अगर उसको पता हो कि सफरिंग का कुछ मीनिंग है, राइट. एंड अगेन मीनिंग चेंज कर सकता है फ्रॉम पर्सन टू पर्सन, बट लेट मी मेक इट परफेक्टली क्लियर दैट इन नो वे इज सफरिंग नेसेसरी टू फाइंड मीनिंग. ऑल राइट, सफरिंग किसी के लिए मीनिंग हो सकता है, बट जरूरी नहीं है कि मीनिंग फाइंड आउट करने के लिए आपको हमेशा सफरिंग के से ही गो थ्रू करना पड़ेगा, ये भी जरूरी नहीं है. ऐसा ऑथर बोल रहे हैं. आई ओनली इंसिस्ट दैट मीनिंग इज पॉसिबल इवन इन स्पाइट ऑफ सफरिंग, प्रोवाइडेड सर्टेनली दैट द सफरिंग इज अनअवॉइडेबल. अगर सफरिंग अनअवॉइडेबल है, यानी कि आप उसको अवॉइड नहीं कर सकते हो, तो वहाँ से भी आपको मीनिंग मिल सकता है, ऐसा वो बोल रहे हैं. पर इसका मतलब ये नहीं कि जबरदस्ती आप सफरिंग ढूंढो. इफ इट वेर अवॉइडेबल, however, the meaningful thing to do would be remove its cause, be it psychological, biological, or political. To suffer unnecessarily is masochistic rather than heroic. That is again very important. सफरिंग अगर अनअवॉइडेबल है तो वो आपकी लाइफ में मीनिंग ऐड कर सकती है, बट अगर अवॉइडेबल है तो उसके कॉज को ही रिमूव कर दो, चाहे वो साइकोलॉजिकल हो, बायोलॉजिकल हो या पॉलिटिकल हो. अगर आप अननेसेसरीली सफ़र कर रहे हो तो वो हीरोइक नहीं है, वो उल्टा है, बेवकूफ़ी है, ऐसा बोलना चाह रहे हैं ऑथर. एडिथ विशकॉफ जोल्सन, before her death, professor of psychology at the University of Georgia, contended in her article on logotherapy that our current mental hygiene philosophy stresses the idea that people ought to be happy, that unhappiness is a symptom of maladjustment. Such a value system might be responsible for the fact that the burden of unavoidable unhappiness is increased by happiness about being unhappy. Okay. And in another paper, she expressed the hope that logotherapy may help counteract certain unhealthy trends in the present day culture of the United States, where the incurable. Okay, just give me 1 second, okay? Just give me 1 second. My niece, she's shouting her lungs out. Okay, now moving ahead, from the top of her lungs will be the right way to put it, I guess. Alright. And in another paper, she expressed the hope that logotherapy may help counteract certain unhealthy trends in the present day culture of the United States, where the incurable sufferer is given very little opportunity to be proud of his suffering and to consider it ennobling rather than degrading, so that he is not only unhappy but also ashamed of being unhappy. There are situations in which one is cut off from the opportunity to do one's work or to enjoy one's life. But what never can be ruled out is the unavoidability of suffering. In accepting this challenge to suffer bravely, life has a meaning up to the last moment, and it retains this meaning literally to the end. In other words, life's meaning is an unconditional one, for it even includes the potential meaning of unavoidable suffering. Let me recall that which was perhaps the deepest experience I had in the concentration camp. The odds of surviving the camp were no more than 1 in 28, as can easily be verified by exact statistics. It did not even seem possible, let alone probable, that the manuscript of my first book, which I had hidden in my coat when I arrived at Auschwitz, would ever be rescued. Thus, I had to undergo and to overcome the loss of my mental child. And now it seemed as if nothing and no one would survive me, neither a physical nor a mental child of my own. So I found myself confronted with the question whether, under such circumstances, my life was ultimately void of any meaning. Not yet did I notice that an answer to this question, with which I was wrestling so passionately, was already in store for me, and that soon thereafter this answer would be given to me. This was the case when I had to surrender my clothes and in return inherited the worn out rags of an inmate who had already been went to the gas chamber immediately after his arrival at the Auschwitz railway station. Instead of the pages of my manuscript, I found in a pocket of the newly acquired coat one single page torn out of a Hebrew prayer book containing the most important Jewish prayer, Shema Israel. Okay. How should I have interpreted such a coincidence other than as a challenge to live my thoughts instead of merely putting them on paper. A bit later, I remember it seemed to me that I would die in the near future. In this critical situation, however, my concern was different from that of most of my comrades. Their question was, will we survive the camp? For if not, all this suffering has no meaning. The question which beset me was, has all this suffering, this dying around us, a meaning? For if not, then ultimately there is no meaning to survival. For a life whose meaning depends upon a happenstance, as whether one escapes or not, ultimately would not be worth living at all. Metaclinical problem. More and more, a psychiatrist is approached today by patients who confront him with human problems rather than neurotic symptoms. Some of the people who nowadays call a psychiatrist would have seen a pastor, priest, or rabbi in former days. Now they often refuse to be handed over a clergyman and instead confront the doctor with questions such as, what is the meaning of my life? A logo drama. Okay, so from page number 105, we are at the, like we have already covered 104 pages. So from page number 105 out of 148, we'll cover in the next live. So if you have been here so far, if you have liked the session, if you have interest in logic, spirituality, book reading, and as of now finding the meaning of life with the help of books, then you can subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much, universe. Thank you so much, Radharanji. Have fun. Peace out. We'll meet very, very, very soon.